Hey everybody, Matt Colville here, Kickstarter update. But before we start, I wanted to thank Luke Dodds, who sent in this fantastic Gale Force 9 Strahd von Zenovich miniature. I love Strahd, and I think I have use for him in the upcoming campaign, and I'm a huge fan of Gale Force 9 minis. I have a whole bunch of them already, so thank you very much, Luke. We will at some point soon, I think, have our own office space, MCDM Productions, and our own P.O. box for people that want to send stuff in. We passed 1.3 whatever it was $1 million on Kickstarter, which means this is now the most well-funded RPG book, a tabletop RPG book on Kickstarter. There are a couple of other better funded RPG projects, but they're all, I think, miniatures or terrain. I got to see my friend John at this past OrcCon on Saturday in LA, and he was the author of the previous record holder, 7th Sea 2nd edition, which I bought a whole bunch of books of, wanted to support him. 7th Sea is a great swashbuckling. I think a lot of people think of it as a pirate game. I don't think it really is. I think the 7th Sea RPG is more swashbuckling, romantic, heroic action RPG, and I think probably has more in common with stuff like the Sharps Rifle series, which, if you haven't checked out, by the way, super good. So I encourage people to go check out 7th Sea 2nd edition from John Wick. He's a good friend of mine, and he's a great writer and a great designer, and if that's the kind of thing you're into, that is, I think, there are tons of source books for it, and they're just gorgeous. I think a lot of people, we're going to have pirate ship stronghold rules now in the book. And I think a lot of people, they've run away with the idea. Now they're imagining that it's going to be the pirate adventure book, which I personally would not be qualified to write. And if you're interested in that kind of high seas adventure in D&D, there are tons of books out there. And there's a bunch of really good papercraft terrain for pirate ships, some of which I may be using in the next campaign. WizKids is coming out with a great, they just announced this today, I think, or just in the past couple of days, this amazing looking pirate ship explicitly for D&D. It's going to have a grid on it and stuff like that. I have a use for something like that in the early stages of the campaign. So unfortunately, I don't think WizKids' pirate ship model is going to be ready. But if you know of a really good pirate ship model for D&D that is at the right scale, and I'm talking about in 3 dimensions, not just, a 2D deck plan, let me know. Post in the comments, because I definitely have a need for one of those. As a stronghold, to give you an idea of how a pirate ship in this book would work, a pirate ship is sort of like a variation on a barbarian camp, which itself is a type of keep. A keep is something that you build if you want to attract units, and a barbarian camp is like that, except it's mobile. It can move around. Now, the interesting thing is a barbarian camp is slower the larger it is, whereas a pirate ship is faster the larger it is, because that's how those two things work. Moving a horde across the land, they tend to slow down, whereas pirate ships, the larger the sails are, the more surface area they can catch up the wind, and the faster they go through the water. And like a barbarian camp, they both have a decivilizing influence on the land around them. If you park your barbarian camp in a civilized province, then there's a chance that you will degrade its level of civilization and eventually turn it into wilderness. That's something a barbarian camp can do. Whereas a pirate ship, you send it to a coastal town, and there is a chance that it will degrade the level of development of that town. I mean, that's basically it, right? It generates money for you, like an establishment does. So it's sort of a hybrid between a keep and an establishment. But otherwise, if you wanted to take, and there'll be advice for this, if you wanted to take your pirate ship and raid a town and have that be an adventure, I think of stronghold stuff as more downtime, stuff that you're doing between adventures, and that you're sending messages back to your lieutenant, for instance, telling him while you're on an adventure, telling them what you intend on doing. But you could definitely have a whole adventure with your pirate ship raiding a town. I think that would be a blast. So that's this update. We hit 1.3 whatever it was million. We're going to have pirate ship stronghold rules. I just gave you some idea of how pirate ships are going to work in the actual rules with keeps and towers and that kind of stuff. If you have any questions about how this stuff works, please post in the comments below, or come by my subreddit /r/Matt Colville. And just for the record, we call it a barbarian camp, but we also call it a pirate ship. It should be clear, and it will be to people reading the rules, that anybody can make any of these. Like your ranger or your druid might have very good reasons to build a barbarian camp, and you just call it something else. There'll be lots of advice in the rules for that. And there's no class called pirate, right? So we already have this understanding that anyone who wanted to, who had the money and the inclination, could buy or build a pirate ship. There's just some cultural archetypes that we deploy in the book, like fighters build keeps and wizards build towers, that I think are useful and fun to explore. But mechanically, there's nothing tying those classes to those strongholds. a wizard could very easily want to build a keep and raise units. And by the way, you don't need to build a keep to buy units. Anybody can buy units. And one of the things you can get on your follower chart, and this is true of all classes, are units. You might get a unit of elite heavy cavalry. Actually, I think only paladins and fighters can get elite heavy cavalry, because what units you get and what the odds of getting those units are changes depending on your class. And we're going to cover that in the next update later this week. I didn't want to make this update too long. The next update later this week, hopefully by Friday, will be going over the paladin follower chart. And I want to explain to everybody how it works and show you the behind the scenes of the design, because, you know, just like anybody can build any stronghold, you don't have to use these follower charts. You might, for instance, have a paladin who is a chaotic neutral coward, in which case some of the logic in the paladin follower chart that's online won't make any sense to you. But not only do I think it's very easy to modify it, there will be rules in the book for how to build your own follower chart. So next update, we'll talk about the follower chart and updates. We got another more than 2 weeks left. More updates coming where we're going to cover how, you know, ambassadors work, how do your artisan followers work. And I just want to make sure you have some understanding of how these rules are going to function so that you're getting the product you expect to get. Much like the game itself, I think a substantive percentage of success is managing expectations. If your players know what kind of game they're getting into, I think they'll have a better time. And I think if the people supporting the Kickstarter have a better idea what kind of product they're getting, then they will appreciate it more. All right, folks, that's it. We have broken the record. For RPG. And you know what? I honestly think I was talking to John Wick about this. I really do think that this is the beginning of something new. Like I'm 98% certain they have no plans to do this right this moment. But if the folks on Critical Role did a Kickstarter for a RPG product, it would dwarf this one. It would be, you know, the demand for it would be astronomical. So I do definitely think that we're entering into a new realm where people can build a following online and then provide content to those people. And I think you're going to find a pretty good synergy between the content provided and the community. I think, in other words, that setting expectations, like if you've watched my videos, I think you're going to have a pretty good idea of what kind of product you're going to get, and you will generally be happy with it. I hope. We're going to find out. So until next update later this week, peace out.